They say love can blossom anywhere. But what if the one place you're not allowed to love is where your heart finds its home? In a world of strict rules, cold offices, and silent ambition, two people discover a connection they can't ignore. But when love becomes a secret, how long can it survive? Tell me in the comments. Would you risk everything for someone you love, even if it meant losing everything you've worked for? Because tonight, you'll hear the story of Ji-woo and Min-jun, two souls trapped between duty and desire, in a place where love was forbidden. She had worked there for almost 6 years, 6 long, silent years surrounded by the hum of computers, the smell of cold coffee, and the quiet pressure that filled every corner of Seoul's corporate world. Her name was Ji-woo. She was an assistant manager at a large marketing firm in Gangnam, a place where people smiled on the outside but hid exhaustion behind their eyes. In that company, everything had rules: how to speak, how to act, how to dress, and above all, how not to fall in love. Relationships between employees were strictly forbidden. It was written clearly in the employee handbook: romantic involvement between staff members is a violation of conduct and may result in termination. No one questioned it. In that world, emotions were considered distractions, and distractions were dangerous. Ji-woo lived by those rules. Her life was predictable, disciplined, and safe. She arrived early, worked late, and smiled just enough to blend in. Every day looked the same until the day Min-jun arrived. He was the new creative director, confident, brilliant, and quiet in a way that made people listen when he spoke. He had just been transferred from Busan, and everyone whispered about his reputation for turning failures into success. The first time Ji-woo met him was during a project review. He looked at her slides for a long moment, then said softly, "You see things differently." It wasn't a compliment, but it lingered in her mind for days. From then on, she began to notice him everywhere. In morning meetings, by the elevator, in the reflection of the glass walls. There was something distant about him, but also something wounded, as if he carried a loneliness that no one else could see. Weeks passed. Then, one rainy night, fate found them both working late. The office was empty, the city lights reflecting off the windows, and the sound of rain filled the silence. At 11:23 p.m., the power suddenly flickered and the monitors went dark. Ji-woo laughed softly and said, "Looks like the universe is telling us to stop working." Min-jun smiled, really smiled, for the first time and replied, "Maybe it's reminding us we're still alive." That small exchange changed everything. From that night, they began to notice each other differently. A cup of coffee left quietly on a desk, a glance that lingered too long, a shared umbrella in the rain. Their conversations grew longer, their silences heavier, and one night, while working side by side, their hands brushed. Neither moved, neither spoke. The air shifted. He whispered her name, Ji-woo, and then kissed her softly, as if afraid that the world might end if he went any further. They both knew it was wrong, forbidden, dangerous. But love doesn't follow rules. Soon, their lives became a delicate secret. Every message had to be hidden, every meeting carefully planned. They became experts at pretending, exchanging work files during the day, holding hands in the dark after everyone left. Sometimes they met by the Han River, sitting in his car as the city glowed around them. She told him she dreamed of becoming an artist someday. He told her he used to dream, but somewhere along the way, he forgot how. For the first time, they both felt alive. But in their world, secrets never stayed hidden for long. One morning, a coworker saw them leaving the same cafe. By noon, whispers spread like wildfire. By the next day, an anonymous email reached HR. A week later, Ji-woo was called into an internal review meeting. The questions were polite but sharp, each one slicing closer to the truth. When she returned to her desk, Min-jun's office was empty. His desk cleared, his nameplate gone. They said he had been reassigned to the Busan branch, but everyone knew what that meant. That night, Ji-woo received an email from him. No subject, no greeting, just 2 words. "I'm sorry." She ran to his apartment, but it was empty. On the door was a small note that read, "If they ask, tell them it was nothing. You still have a future here." Ji-woo stood there for hours, crying quietly as the city slept. The next morning, she went to work as if nothing had happened, but something inside her had broken. Days turned into weeks. The world felt gray again. Then, one rainy evening, as she stood by her apartment window, she saw him across the street. A man holding an umbrella, looking up at her window. Her heart stopped. She ran outside barefoot into the rain. But when she reached the street, he was gone. Only a folded note remained on the bench. It read, "I'm building something new, a place where we don't have to hide." The next day, Ji-woo resigned. She didn't explain why. She just left her resignation letter on her desk and walked out, never looking back. Weeks passed before she found the address written on the back of the note, a small design studio near Hongdae. When she entered, soft music filled the room. And there he was, Min-jun, no longer in a suit, just a man smiling as if he'd been waiting for her all along. "Took you long enough," he said. Ji-woo laughed through tears. And in that moment, they finally allowed themselves to exist, not as employees, not as rule breakers, but as two people who refused to let fear define them. Together, they built a small studio, focused on art, storytelling, and design. It wasn't big, but it was theirs. For the first time, they were free, but freedom came with a price. One morning, a letter arrived, a lawsuit from their old company accusing Min-jun of breaching contract and stealing clients. He read it in silence, then said, "I can fight it, but it'll destroy everything I've built." Ji-woo took his hand and whispered, "Then let it. We'll build again." And they did. Years passed. Their studio grew slowly, becoming known for work filled with honesty and heart. Sometimes, people would ask them how they met. Ji-woo always smiled and said, "In a place where love was forbidden." Min-jun would look at her, eyes soft, and reply, "And that's how I knew it was real." Because love that breaks the rules isn't always a sin. Sometimes it's a revolution, and for them, it became both. The kind of love that survived everything, even a world determined to keep them apart.